Well, hi everyone. Welcome to the new player experience presentation. We'll tell you. Hey, I thought that was mine. Oh, well. I'll explain today why new players in Eve have to die and some other random facts. I probably won't be too serious, and Stuffer, feel free to interrupt. My name is Chantal Zuurmond, better known as Eris Discordia. I've been working for CCP now for 3 months and a little bit. And before that, I also was a volunteer. So I've been around a bit, and I even play in beta. So that's a little bit about me. And I've been working on the MP in Apocrypha, and now again also for Dominion. I also made the skill queue that made a lot of people very happy. And I think this time I'm going to make people very unhappy with some changes we've done. 11%, anyone? Yeah. And I also am a designer for Incarna. I think Binny's waving and not asking a question. Oh, okay. And there we have Prismix, if you want to buy him a beer or throw something at him. And we have CCP Spectre, I think it was, yeah. And they're members of our team, because in Dominion we work on Unar cell phones. Please, if you have a cell phone, turn it off a little bit or make it go soft. Oh, well, I'll get started. So who is designing MP? Well, there's Ivar Emilsson, also known as Nans, and he is a PvPer at heart. He enjoys fleet warfare, small gangs. He's a good solo PvPer, and he doesn't fly capital ships by choice. We have Christopher Tilburg, also known as Soundwave, and he didn't email me, so he's too cool for words on PowerPoint. But I know he did some pew-pew. Yeah, that's your own fault. And there's me. I've played in beta, and I think I mined for 5 minutes in Eve. And I'm really more PvP focused, and I'm really a fan of joining corporations and playing with them. And because I suck at solo PvP, I just die instantly. So, yeah. This is kind of what the designers are in this team. We're like, Adama, we've been through the wars, we have seen a lot of combat, and we see these rookies coming in, and we know we have to teach them fast or they'll just get blown up instantly and are very unhappy. And as a team, we believe that new players can do more than just learn how to run missions. We feel that the current MP experience is very good, but it kind of pushes people into doing missions on their own, which is not how we think you should play. We think that new players can participate in combat early on. It doesn't take much to become useful in combat. I mean, I was useful in a Bantam back in the days. I wasn't useful for very long in each fight, but I was there. And we also believe that we should pass on the wisdom of older players. Like, whenever a new player asks another player or corporation, like, what should I do in Eve? You get that advice, and we think that advice should be somewhere in the tutorial that CCP gives you. So, in the end, this is what we want our new players to be in Eve, like tough, cute, but, you know, they aren't, and will become dangerous. Maybe not when you look cute. But there's a theory in game design, and these are kind of like the game design rules. And that tutorial explains the rules of the game. It's not there to challenge you. It should be entertaining, but it shouldn't challenge you. It shouldn't keep you up at night and make it too difficult. Because this is what they don't want to see. If you are a new player and you meet the big boss at the start and you just cannot defeat him, you don't subscribe to the game. It's like, well, the game is too hard. I can't even make it past the tutorial. Why should I bother? The player must not die. It really is one of the key things in game design. All the books say don't let the player die. Just have them cuddle puppies. That should be the tutorial. But the designers on our team say, well, Eve is not like other games. So why should we stick to those design rules? They're about different games. They're not about Eve. In Eve, loss is meaningful. It's there for a reason. And in other games, you lose something and then you have a flashlight and you look for your corpse. And that's about it. That's just silly, why bother? In Eve, you do lose something. You get attached to your ship. You even get attached to your drones. If they blow up, you feel like a moment of sadness. So you don't restart with the same stuff you had. And to appreciate the highs in Eve, to really appreciate the goals you reach that you set for yourself, to appreciate the fact that you blew somebody else up, you have to know how it feels if you lose something. And then you can do it to someone else and laugh at them being miserable. And yeah, victory is never empty. If you do something, it really means something because there's a risk of really losing something. Okay, work. And if you understand, the basic concept of loss in Eve, you can also understand that if you disrupt the logistics side of an alliance and then you have a fleet fight and you massacre them, it's not something they're just going to get over in a day. You also have the other fact that the people who are fighting and lost everything, they're going to feel it. And I don't think that you have that sort of gameplay almost in other games because the loss is not really real. You don't really feel it. You got your flashlight and you get whatever you lost. So it's like, meh, that sucks, I'll do better tomorrow. In Eve, it's like, whoa, that alliance is in deep shit, basically. So I think that the risk of loss and losing is essential to the harshness of Eve and how immersive and how addictive Eve is. If we would remove it, Eve would be more like other games. And if you lose something or if you win something, we'll be like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Now, if you lose something, you feel it. Oh. But I should say, losing a ship is not extraordinary. It's going to happen. You know it's going to happen either sooner or later. And all the veteran players will tell you, get used to it. Just go out there and get blown up and learn how to deal with it. And, don't fly what you can afford. Those types of insights is what we want to teach new people. So we made the Advanced Warfare career path. We have career paths already about industry and I think it was business? Soldier, yeah, military. Well, we're adding a new one, and in this one, players will actually lose their ship. If they don't get blown up by an NPC, they will not advance in the career path.
And if any of you are thinking that you can bring a better ship, believe me, I made sure that you will lose your ship. So bring the biggest thing you have.
But we'll tell them, don't bring the biggest thing you'll have. You're asked to die. Imagine you're an alliance or a corporation, and they say, you're going to be bait, sit there, taunt, look innocent, and get blown up, and then we can come in, and they're criminally flagged so they can't jump out, yada, yada, yada. Losing a ship in Eve has a function, so they need to get used to it. But we'll also teach them how to deal with it, how to cope with it. And one of those things is don't fit the most expensive modules you have. Don't bring the most expensive ship you have if you know you're going to die. So we're nice, somewhat. You also teach them different fleet roles to make them, useful in PvP, such as being a tackler. It doesn't take long to train up as one. If you fly Tech 1 ships, you can tackle, and it's not too bad if you lose a ship. So we're going to teach them that. And we'll keep watching over them as a somewhat fatherly figure. Well, he'll be the fatherly figure, I'll be the evil stepmom. Yeah. I don't have kids yet, so. very un-Icelandic. But yeah, we'll be watching over them and making sure everything is going well. And what we're going to watch for is we also changed the existing career paths, and we want to make sure that the changes we make it easier for people to understand what's going on. And of course, we want to see that people do learn how to cope with loss and they don't lose their ship and just quit EVE or something. That's not the message we want to get through. And the way we do that is with data mining and with surveys. We have a data mining team that's sitting there. Now they're here as Muppets. Not reflecting their personalities at all. Yeah, they'll thank me later. I just know they will. But what we've done is that we inserted some more data hooks in the tutorial and also in other sections of EVE. It sounds really dirty. It is kind of dirty and has to do with the database. So to make TQ feel safe and secure, we make a copy of the TQ database, and that's where we run all these queries and things on. And then we extract the data. That's what Data Master Spectrum does. And he turns it into pretty graphs and OLAP cubes, and he has the entire design department really excited about OLAP cubes, which is pretty novel. Normally we talk in language that everyone understands, and now we're mentioning OLAP cubes and dundas and smart parts. And we're getting more technical. And we also have surveys or questionnaires sent to the trial users. I'll go a bit more into everything. With the data mining, we have seen a lot of results already. We can see at what stage in a tutorial or in a mission people drop off, or if they repeat something a lot. And if the numbers are rather extreme, we know that something is wrong. Like maybe they don't understand the text, or maybe they're somewhat stuck in the UI, and then we can take action. We took the data from Apocrypha 1.0 on the career paths, and we made some changes where we thought players might get stuck, and it resulted in that 1,350 more people were able to finish it. Like these people from before got somewhat stuck, and now we made sure that they can pass through it. And because of the data mining, we can do more risky stuff in the design, like having people actually losing their ship and not knowing how they react to it would be pretty bad. But now we feel, okay, we can see how people react to it. Is it really true? If people die without any explanation or whatever, do they stop? Or does it depend on the game and how you tell people this is needed, it's a valid tactic, and do they understand and go, okay, this is kind of cool. Let's give it a go and not just quit. And if we didn't have the data mining, we probably wouldn't feel secure in saying, okay, new people, rookies, it's time you learn EVE and you lose your ship. So we also have data mining in the epic arcs. And this is an example of how a graph would look like if there is a problem. You can really see a spike. And if this was in tutorials, we would look at it and go, okay, maybe the text is unclear and make a change there. So this is how we know something is wrong. There's a big spike. It's not that difficult to read graphics. With the surveys, marketing used their surveys and they asked us this time, is there anything that you are particularly interested in? And we said, well, we really want to know how important corporations are to new players. So they asked several questions about corporations and looked at the other data they got, and what they saw is something the designers kind of expected, and that's that corporations are really, really good. And the reason why they are good is because they are almost like a private mentor who tells you, this is how you play EVE, you can find this there, let's do something together, let's do a mining up together. I know you never really wanted to mine, but let's try it anyway. And what turns out is that people really enjoy doing these activities with each other. Even if they didn't expect doing it in EVE, if they do it with the corporations, they enjoy it a lot more. And I thought about this, and we always talk about a sandbox, and a sandbox is only a sandbox if you have more people. If you're alone, you might as well stare at the sea and be really, really emo at the beach alone. So you need to have corporations, you need to have those social ties in there to make Eve the experience that it is. And because we found out that corporations are so important, we want to nudge new people and other people to join player corporations and leave the NPC corporations. This is a nudge. And the ways we've done this is by removing a few of the barriers that may keep people from joining player corporations. One of the ones we find highly annoying is that to even apply to a corporation, you have to take a lot of jumps. I'm being PC here. You have to take a lot of jumps, you apply, and then you get accepted, and the corporation says, oh yeah, but we're at the other end of the universe, so you have to make more jumps. And if you have to do that a few times, it gets really annoying. We also want to promote the recruitment forums more. It's a really nice way to see what corporations or alliances are recruiting, and you can talk, and it doesn't matter if the person is online or not. And for the future, to make it easier to join a corporation, we want to look into the UI that, gets you to join one, because it's not really easy to navigate. What we can do in the meantime is prepare a player for joining a corporation and becoming useful in there. So we sat down, had a brainstorm session with a bit of beer, like, okay, what makes a new player useful? What would it take for me or another corporation to say, okay, rookie, come join us? And what it is participation. They need to be able to join and be somewhat decent, useful. They need to know a little bit about Eve. They need to know maybe scanning, tackling, probing, mining. They're also useful for karaoke, but we can't teach them that. You can teach them that if you want. I've heard some people sing, and it's not pretty. It's like, you can ask Stuffer tonight on the pub crawl to sing. I know you will. So probing and scanning is becoming a pretty vital skill in Eve. I mean, all the good sides. Everything that's good is hidden. My voice is gone. Oh, I hope this is better. So we also added another career path, the exploration one, and it will teach the rookies how to go out, use their scanner, and use probes, and actually find these things themselves. Which is, some people say it's so difficult to learn, and I'll never master it. And honestly, it's not that hard anymore. I can do it. I learned it in a day. So if I can do it, everyone can. The only thing was that it was not easy peasy to program. In fact, it was really not swell at all. The reason, because this was so much more difficult than we expected, is that our mission system doesn't really talk to the rest of Eve. It's not connected to the probing system. So we had to find a workaround where in the end we are absolutely sure that a player went to the site, did their thing, and they had to probe it down themselves. I don't know if you want to elaborate on it? Yeah.
Question thing is going to work?
Yeah.
Well, basically, it's going to be a bit different than most of the other tutorials, obviously. Like one of the steps is just going through the different sites. If you guys want to sit down, there's seats up there, I think, somewhere. Come on, guys. Well, I mean, first of all, you'll be taken through each site where you don't actually have to do anything. We have an actual, instead of just getting the agent mission, when you warp to the site, there's an agent there who's going to like kind of hold your hand, and every time you jump into a new room, she's going to give you information about that room. And then afterwards, obviously, you have to go out and do it yourself. So we start out soft with an anomaly, and I mean, we're just going to place a load of anomalies. So once you press the scanning button, it's going to be pretty impossible to not find one anywhere in the system. The only way you can physically screw this up is if you're docked, and if you're docked, well, we have other problems. But I mean, essentially, you'll be taken through each type of site. So we start out with the anomaly, and then we'll have a LADAR site and so forth, and you'll have to go inside each one of them. So it'll be pretty much like It'll probably be a bit more advanced tutorial than the soldier industry and business ones, but it'll probably be beneficial as Eris said, a lot of our content is tied to probing, so it's kind of a key thing to learn these days. Probably more important than the other ones.
Maybe the advanced combat one. That's pretty important.
They're both really important.
Yeah. We're really excited what we're doing. We think they're maybe the most important things for a new player to do. Learn how to scan and die with a bit of grace. Okay. We kind of finished the stuff for MPE, but I have some extra material. I know there's been some topics, some posts about the NPC tags, and I know people are excited about the Fleet Finder, and if we have even more time, we can talk a little bit about the future. So I'll talk about the NPC tags. So we really wanted it in there as a small financial incentive to join a player corporation instead of staying with the NPC corporation that had no tax and almost no incentive to join a player corporations. It also balances out the advantage of being completely immune to war declarations. It's an advantage no other corporation has really. And for that advantage, there needs to be some sort of balance. And of course, empires just want your money. You know, they're suffering. So the average player tax in a corporation is 8%. And that's why we put the NPC tax at 11, because it's a nudge. It's a little bit higher, but it's not a kick in the balls. Like, we're not saying you have to join a player corporation. We're not planning to remove the NPC corporations. It's just we think you might enjoy it there. You should give it a go. And I've read on the forums that people say, you're taking away the sandbox. You are forcing us. Again, we're not forcing you. It's not a kick in the balls. You can stay in the NPC corp if you really enjoy it. You just have to pay the tax. And for me, a sandbox means you have to make choices. You can't have it all. Like, I've got the stiletto and the crow. You can't have the natural speed of the stiletto and its mid-slots together with the firepower of a crow. If you'd have an interceptor that combines them both without any negative side effects, it would be a little bit overpowered. And the same is applies to the NPC corporation versus the player corporation. Now you have a choice. Instead of being presented with the no-brainer utopia corporation. And that's just not how EVE works. That's also not how a sandbox is supposed to work. Onto the Fleet Finder. The Fleet Finder makes it possible to join a fleet in your alliance or corporation or militia without having to X to show the fleet commander you want to join and having you send an invite, getting the pop-up box and accepting it. Now the commander of the fleet can register the fleet and have it open to the corporation or alliance, and you just click and you're in. It's very easy. And the reason we started with the idea of the Fleet Finder is that we want new players to see other groups of players, fleets of players, who are maybe mining or missioning and being able to join them. But we work with Agile now, so instead of saying, okay, we're going to make it very specific and only for new players, we thought as a first iteration, as the first goal, we'll make it ready for the corporations and the alliances and the militia. And that will be the Dominion release of the Fleet Finder. You can join the fleets if you are in the alliance, the corporation, or the militia, and then hopefully in the future we'll make it even better, and then everyone can use the Fleet Finder even if you're not in that alliance, corporation, or militia. Ooh. So yeah, the future, it's still undecided. I don't know yet what we will actually do with MP in the future. I hope that we will iterate on the Fleet Finder. I think it will be very useful, and I think EVE is lacking a way to see groups of people working together and easily joining them. I hope that we will continue making it easier to join corporations, especially for new players. It does pay off for them if they are in a corporation and, you know, they play EVE with other people as an MMO. It's not. I thought it was pretty simple, but I know some people really, really want to be a solo player, and If you really, really want to, you can. But we think you might enjoy Eve more in a corporation. If you really don't and you really hate it, then of course you'll have the choice not to. But for the other people, we want to make it easier for them to find friends. And that's really it for me. Do you have any questions, either for me or for Stuffer? You can also give suggestions for future improvement on the MP. Is there anything? Yeah.
Hi, I'm with Evgeny, so okay, this is going to show up
Hey,
here.
Evgeny.
So the advanced warfare line, I was wondering if you were going to start introducing discussions on how all the timers and that sort of stuff work, because I found that that's one of the big issues that we're finding.
What works?
The aggression timers and that sort of thing. Is that going to be talked about in the advanced warfare call?
No, we don't plan for it. But is it really
It's
something
a
you...
source of confusion that we found.
Okay.
The whole, why can't I jump now? Or, you know, if you're routing, why do you see that aggression timer show up and oh my god, am I going to die?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's...
So it's just curiosity.
Yeah.
No, we haven't thought about it, but it's a really good suggestion, and definitely something we'll look into. Either having some text explaining, like, "Don't worry, this will go away," or
Don't worry, it's not a real sign. But I mean, I think that would be ideal to put into the soldier one,
yeah,
because otherwise you'll have gone through the crash course and possibly one of the other ones, and it becomes a little superfluous to put it in there. But if we can get it in earlier, I think that's a good idea, because I kind of agree with what you're saying, that it might be a bit confusing to have it.
yeah. I can imagine if you're new and you have no idea what's going on, and suddenly you have all these
Yeah.
things popping up in red, and
Yes.
I think also yellow. You have,
Yeah.
you don't know the difference. Then yeah,
Yeah.
no,
No, that's bad.
The aggression system, it's a good system, but it's overly complex in a lot of ways. For my new report, I ended up writing a 2-page PDF
Mm.
that explained when you can shoot other players and when you
Mm.
can't. And I think maybe simplifying it would also go a long way towards
Yeah.
making it easier to explain.
and maybe link it in an advanced warfare tutorial before they go out and try and shoot people.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I don't like the system at all. It's like the undock game, all that stuff. It's just, and we have the yellow and red text, and it's just, it could be really simple. It could be pretty straightforward, but there's like color coding, and I mean color coding in general isn't very good in games. So
What's important, I think, for new players in relations like to know when Concord is going to turn up and when they're not going to turn up.
I think you're right.
Do you think the message when you jump out of zero 0.5 system into low sec, do you think that message could be improved?
I like that message. I think that's good.
The message is good.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I've not had anyone tell me anything about it. Everyone said, yeah, I understood, I read it.
Okay, so it's really the aggression stuff mostly.
And then they turn around, go back to the mission agent and abort the mission when they get the low sector.
Okay, those are good points. This is really useful for us because, we need to hear from you, like, okay, this is where new people ask me, I'm stuck. We don't always hear from them in that way. So is there anything else?
I just was wondering if you've, I guess it's something about the way Eve missions work that is different from other MMOs, which I think is probably a big weakness in the new player experience, in particular in finding corps to play with.
Yes.
So if you think about how you might play World of Warcraft, or I hate to mention it, but when you get a quest, you'll be sent to a particular location to kill kobolds, and there'll be, say, 2 other people there killing the same kobolds. You're like, okay, let's kill these kobolds together. So off you go, you start killing them. Half an hour later, you're like, hey, that was pretty good. You maybe put them on your friends list, or you think you get a kill and invite them to join the guild. And there's this forcing of players of a certain level into a certain situation with a common enemy. And if you think about
Yeah, it's for us. It's pretty much a continuous problem almost we run into because we know the value of having these missions, but our mission system has been written in a way it doesn't really recognize it. Just having, you know, having people probe these sites down just means that they get an item from that site and the agent will only accept that item. That's the way we worked around it. And if we start to think about having shared missions, you know, depending on the location, they might grieve each other. And that's, we don't know if we should introduce that aspect so soon. Because we,
It's a very common thing to do with news, is to invite them.
Yeah.
Well, help with the mission.
But I think one of the issues as well with Eve compared to other games is that, like the example you mentioned with World of Warcraft, you have like a dependency on other players for your progression. So you're out collecting those 10,000 rabbit ears over and over every day. And I mean, you get something out of it together. If you run missions in teams in Eve, a lot of players don't do it simply because it's not as financially feasible. And which is, you know, the reason why the majority of people run missions is to make money. So I think we have the issue that our missions people don't run them for the same reasons people run them in WoW, and Eve isn't a game that's necessarily structured so that you depend on the other people to progress. I mean, you realistically do in WoW. At some point, you'll have to group up. I mean, you don't really here. I mean, you can do it, and it feels like. When we sat down and thought about this, the whole getting people to do stuff together, it feels kind of like you have Eve and you have like this, you know, the board that kids like find shapes and put through, and it feels like we're trying like to put a rectangle through like a triangle, and it's like going like that, and it doesn't really always work. And I mean, one of the things that I really wanted to do, and what we talked about, was having like distress calls, which were like randomly appearing dungeons, essentially, where everyone in system would be able to see them, and they'd be able to group up and do them together, because that created like a spontaneous event that people could jump into. But in terms of missions, it's difficult to give people an incentive to group up other than making them harder or giving them some kind of group bonus. But it's a little bit of an issue. It's a little bit tricky to get people together in Eve because we have a lot of good social structures, a lot of good established social structures. But once you're outside of them, it gets a little more iffy, and that's probably our biggest issue.
yeah.
About 75% of the people I report to Eve, they tend to gravitate to the missions,
Yeah.
and then they run them solo.
Yeah.
And they just never have time to really interact with another player.
Y-
Then
yeah.
it's outrageous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
say no.
But we know that ideally we put this in and either as distress calls or specific missions, but to do that we really have to redesign some of the core technology of Eve. Eve was pretty much set up 6 years ago, and the programmers back then didn't put enough flexibility in the system to change it this drastically.
Yeah.
So for us to be able to make those type of changes, it would be maybe among the magnitude of having the wormholes in Apocrypha. It would take a lot of effort, a lot of programmers, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears of the programmers too.
And I think a lot of the structure as well. I mean,
Yeah.
again, going back to your example of WoW, you have a very clear set of roles, and you don't really have that in Eve. If you're running missions, you're the damage dealer. That's it, pretty much. And I mean, obviously, you know, you have your clerics, you have your tanks, you have your all those other things that complement each other so well, and we don't have that much. I mean, I think our change for logistics is going out. I believe my partner Nos changed the requirements for logistics and the small modules, because right now I think the effective range of logistics modules is 4 kilometers. And let's face it, if you're using a logistics module, you're a frigate and you're going several hundred kilometers a second, and 4K just isn't a range that anyone can use for anything. It's actually a pretty terrible module right these days, and we kind of wanted to reverse it, so you got more range on the lower ones, and that should be going out. So logistics modules are actually useful after Dominion, compared to before, where only the large ones were. So hopefully we can get some people in. We lowered the skill requirements as well, so new players will actually be able to use logistics modules, and that should at least create some of the groundwork for more roles. But I mean, we would have to set up quite a few things to make this.
And we also changed the skill requirements on other modules and the prerequisites for other skills like thermodynamics.
Yeah. Yeah,
Difficult work, yeah.
and scanning, of course, all the probing stuff, because it seems kind of stupid to have a tutorial if people can't do it before like their trial is up. So we lowered that a bit. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
On what he said, and also taking us back to
Yeah.
the aggression stuff, you're right about creeping, getting players into groups really early on. But that stems a lot from the fact that we join a fleet with someone else and it's quite easy to kill them without many consequences. Yeah, simplifying the aggression rules can solve some of the problems. But what I was going to say is, one thing we do with noobs in our corp is we run level 4 missions and we drag them along. And they don't do much, obviously, but they get to experience it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's very common. But what it means is when we don't have an older player online, the noobs are sitting there, they've got not much to do, and they run missions again solo. There's no reason not to group up so as to run
Yeah.
So my suggestion would be, quite simply, can't you make harder missions, like you said, or better rewarding missions, and say you can only accept this mission if you're in the fleet?
Hmm.
You know, a simple. I agree with what you're saying. You have some great ideas and take a long time to do it properly, but something you could do, next week. Is just put a requirement on the mission saying you must be in a fleet to accept this, and this mission is twice the reward that you normally would get.
I mean, when I run missions, I do it with 2 accounts, so that would be fine for me.
You're always going to get it.
Yeah, I think you are, and that's an issue.
You've got multiple accounts and you're
Yeah.
already doing level 4 anyway. Why
Yeah.
would they want to do the level 2,
Yeah.
level 1 missions?
Yeah.
Why use the
I mean, yeah, altering the content to have more roles, have multiple and dynamic goals in missions, would be for me like the one of the more ideal ways to go. But I mean, it's definitely something that could be looked at. Sorry, there's a guy up there, and there's you up there. Go ahead.
Regarding skills, one of the first things players taught as soon as they enter the root channel is to start trying learning skills.
Oh God, not that question.
Yes.
Yes.
When you're doing the tutorial missions and having other skills to try, doing learning skills is not fun.
I know.
Are there plans to record that? Is the talk about removing them
Yes.
altogether?
Every
Yes.
day, every single day.
Every day.
Stopping you at the moment from doing that?
Because it's really a tricky thing. Like, we have a lot of players who bought the skills, trained the skills, so just removing them, just taking them out of the game, it would make a lot of people very, very angry. Like, very angry. So that's something we really have to consider well. Changing how they work would still have people very angry and very upset. And if we change the system, like this is how learning skills work now, and if we say we want to inject them or give them out for free or make them tied to some activity you do, then we'd have to, oh my God, you're grinding an Eve, which is not something we're keen to do. And it might also upset the system, the learning system. So it's something we are aware of, and we looked in it in Apocrypha. We had 3 designers working on it for months to come up with a design that would disappoint the least amount of people. And it still didn't go through because it is such a big problem, and the way to handle it would be very, very delicate. And when he, like, I'm his product owner, I kind of tell him a little bit what to do. And when he said, oh, I'm out of design stuff, what should I do? I said, you should think about learning skills. And that's why he was like, oh,
Yeah.
because he's been thinking about learning skills. Do you want to share your thoughts, Stuffer?
Yeah. Well, somewhat. Well, I mean, I think there's quite a lot of solutions. pretty much every one of them is bad in some way. And I mean, at some point, I think we'll just have to sit down and go, this is the least bad.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, one way is simply taking them out of the game and reimbursing players their skill points and money. Our database guy over there sitting, and he's just staring at me right now. that I be like a tremendously, if we're gonna have. Am I still on? Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just talk in the mic.
Sorry, yeah. I mean, another option was to give it out as skill injections when you have like certain achievements. So, I mean, if you have a certain number of faction warfare kills, you get a skill injection. If you have a certain amount of epic arcs run, but I mean, then I ran into someone who told me I was killing the sandbox, which I guess is kind of right. I mean, we don't want to force people to do everything, and we're talking about just having a dual training system where you could train them at the same time at your other skills.
Not possible. It's not possible.
It's apparently not possible. We're talking about giving them as skill injections at the end of the tutorial. So we basically would make sure that people that ran the tutorial have a good grasp of Eve and learning skills. But I mean, I guess people would, be really upset that they spend years training it and some noob gets it in 10 hours or something.
So, in short, we are aware of the problem. I don't like it when people say, oh, you're on a tutorial, that's really nice. You should do learning skills and come back in even 3 months. That's horrible.
That's what I did when I started Eve. I bought 2 accounts, I started learning skills. I think I played Counter-Strike for 2 months, and then I came back and played Eve. And
you're going to be taken away into a dark room and beaten up.
Yes. Well, but I mean...
For several reasons.
But I mean, learning skills, I have like this long list of fixes. And I mean, I should just come into the office, get really drunk, and pick one. I think that's the only way of solving this problem. No, but it's something we're aware of. And
we're looking into it, but it's a really tricky thing.
Yes, it
Maybe
is.
we can write some dev blogs and just see the reactions for fun. Like, make it in big caps letters. This is just an idea. We're not doing it yet, but we need feedback. But, yeah, in really, really big letters. But, yeah.
Guy in the back?
Yeah, I have a couple things. We talked about the aggression timer. One of the things that we've actually used to recruit new players is we've had a couple heavily armored ships out in a belt with a couple of miners. And, of course, we pop the random rats that show up. And we're in ISAC. So we're not really worried about the rats. But you get new players that come through, they go, oh, can I loot your rat? And we're like, sure. And immediately they're flashy red and they don't know why we popped them.
Yeah.
So
You evil griefer. How dare you hurt the cute rookies? Didn't you see my puppy picture?
I'll bring it up. I think it's something that should be added along with the explanation of the aggression timer. Because theft isn't really very well explained until you've been popped a couple times.
Isn't there a pop-up, though?
Something else that we talked
I think there's a pop-up, though.
at the PvE roundtable, and it kind of came up earlier, was scalable missions. Just throw that out there.
Yeah.
If the more people in your fleet, the more difficult the mission can be.
If only we had some kind of wormhole AI.
Well, and something else that I thought about that just came up was you mentioned distress signals. Why don't sleepers come through the wormholes to us? I mean, if it's all of a sudden instance where some NPC is sending out a distress signal because he's being attacked by sleepers, you're going to encourage groups of people to get together because, I mean, sleepers aren't the easiest NPCs to fight. And then my last question was regarding you apparently mentioned getting popped as a noob in your advanced warfare tutorial. What about getting potted?
I thought that would be just a little bit too cruel.
I really wanted to do it.
How else would you introduce a new character to the cloning system?
You do get a tutorial about the cloning system, but they don't lose any skill points if they get potted. So it would be like, we're teaching you something and you're not going to use it anytime soon.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of games where you start off with, I mean, you initially enter the game with the character with badass gear and badass skills, and all of a sudden, oh, you died. And, I mean, not that you want to torture a new player that way.
Well,
But, as soon as they log in, into an instance and you get popped by something, then it introduces you to the tutorial. As long as there was no way around it, so you would have a badass ship with all these skills for some brain. Just something that came up in a discussion with friends earlier was that until you get potted, you really have no idea what the cloning system is about. Even through the tutorial, I mean, reading about something is a lot different
Yes.
than practicing something.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
agree.
it's definitely a good idea, and I liked your idea about sleepers maybe functioning at distress sites. It could possibly work in a way.
Why don't they come through wormholes? We're constantly going into their space.
Or we could just put the AI in missions that scales missions up and rewards and everything.
Well, we talked about that.
And I say that like it's a simple solution. I see Unar just laughing.
Yeah. I've been designing for a few years, and he hasn't been designing for a few years, so he doesn't know what makes a programmer cry, and I do. That's why I could say no to the have-to learning systems. It's like he'll learn, and then he'll be like, no, no, no. And the programmers like get happier and happier with you. It's really fun to see.
I think there was someone in the back, and then you. Was there someone up there? Oh, it's just the guy leaving.
Oh yeah, I see a hand. You.
Oh, was it? Oh, sorry. Sorry. Yeah.
On the fleet finding pricing system, is there an option to limit the number of people in a given fleet? Because we sort of run in smaller groups in my alliance.
Yes. We have, I think, the lead programmer is finishing the Fleet Finder, and we have a QA resource who is volunteering his weekends, and a new artist who is volunteering his weekends to make the icons for it.
It's being made in people's spare time
Yes,
because
it's
they like working
CCP's
on this
Love
game.
Child project. Like everybody, when we suggested the idea, people were like, yeah, okay, and then they saw the what's on CC, and they were like, this is gonna be awesome. We have to finish it. We have to finish it. So, yeah, we're getting some attention on it.
Yeah, I've got 2 points or questions. Can you put in? It's stressed to put someone into a corp as quickly as possible, but teaching the noobs how to identify a good corp from one that's going to rip you off. I've only been playing since last October, and first corp I joined, 50% tax, not really knowing what really was. Everything went to them, and they gave me a ship. Yeah, great, but all I had to do was mine, and they wouldn't let me do anything else. Not knowing that, not really knowing the game, and they're turning around and saying, yeah, do this, do that, doesn't really help the noob experience. And then the second point would be when you're doing the contract runs, and you pick a contract and you go off to somewhere else. As you said, you dual box. I use one as a covert ops, going into low set, going to the stations. That's great. But I also did it into 0-0, and when I took the contract, the cost to get into that station was really low. And then when I actually took the contract for all the things for that 0-0 station, turned up there, it was multi-millions of ISKs actually getting to the station, and I had to just let everything time out. And I lost all my money. As a noob, at that point, it's...
Yeah. That's not a good mechanic right there.
No, it doesn't sound ideal.
No, it
We
doesn't.
should maybe do something about it, like the aggression stuff.
Yeah.
Did you set a freeze on? If you pick up a contract just in the station, could you set a price freeze? Like free bot entry?
Yeah, I mean, you could you can only make courier contracts if station has X fees, or you could not allow it in stations that have fees.
Yeah.
Isn't there a pop-up that says make sure you can access the station where it is?
Yeah, but if it doesn't tell you the amount you actually have to pay, you won't know.
Yeah, but you wouldn't know you can access the station unless you go there anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of an arbitrary question, isn't it? It's like, what's going to happen tomorrow?
A really cheap price first, went back, actually took the contracts.
Who owns the station?
I'm not sure. It was a while back, and I actually stopped doing contract runs. Because of it.
Curious as to me.
Yeah.
Well, no, because you can see it's a GJITS BWF, something just close to Dawson Key, and they have about 50 contracts there. You take them all, and all
What a bunch of dicks. Yeah, fair enough.
They're unswell people.
Yeah, they're
Stuffer.
unswell people. That's all
Unswell
we can
people.
swear. What a band
CCP
of
is very keen on the
unattractive
word
persons.
swell
Yeah.
these days. Yeah.
Yeah, hi, I've got a suggestion and a question, if I may. The suggestion links to the aggression timing sort of issue earlier. In terms of taking the player through that and just trying to explain everything that's going on, which is clearly difficult because it can be quite complex. When we deal with the players, we link them as much as we can to the Wikipedia.
Yes.
Because there is a wealth of information there that if they can be bothered to sit down and read, it will generally walk them through that particular question. Not all the time, but lots of the time. I know that aggression time comes up quite a lot. That's quite well explained. So you could link them as part of that tutorial to that. If they choose not to go there, then that's their choice.
I actually did that for quite a lot of tutorials like 2 weeks ago. So I'm like, it's because
We
I'm
like
psychic.
Evilopedia.
I thought this question would come up. No, actually, I thought the Evilopedia, I had this kind of prejudice and I thought it was terrible. And then I sat down and read it, and it is actually probably the best source of information for Eve you can find, and it's really good. So I started embedding links to the Evilopedia in the tutorials. So when you run the exploration, career paths, and so forth, mostly the last page will have like a "Would you like to learn more?" Link to Evilopedia, because it is actually pretty goddamn good.
I'm very anti-wikis personally, and it's the only one I really like.
Yeah.
I still see a lot of questions, so I want to.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I want to go through as many questions as possible because otherwise people
You
miss
can
out.
do it, but you
and-
have to say it really quickly. Go.
Yeah.
Can other players scan down probed sites for a new player experience?
Yes, they can.
So they're vulnerable to possible exploitation.
What type of exploitation?
A player sits in the system, they know new players will generate that mission, walk to the site, collect the target item, and then either ransom them or just take it on.
Uh-huh.
No.
And then it becomes a negative experience.
No,
No.
they will
We
not.
saw that coming.
Mostly because I'd be the guy sitting there. There's going to be, did we set like a 1 second timer on the object or something?
Yeah.
You're basically going to have the object there always. It's not gonna go away.
I stopped grieving when I was moved into MPE, but before that, yeah, I
Yeah.
know how you think.
I was told I couldn't do it when I joined CCP. So
It's kind of so they already do that. Don't yeah. Okay. MPs, cute rookies. Someone.
Just wondering, with the advanced tutorial for PvP, you can explain some of the slang, so when someone says bring a point, and you actually know who a point is.
somewhat, but that's a really good point.
Yeah, we can.
Well, I mean, we introduced them to warp scrambling and webs and stuff like that, and introduced them to tackling. But that's a really good point.
Yeah, we can.
I'll try and put that in.
Stuffer.
God damn it.
We will take your
Yeah,
suggestion
I like it.
and work it into our advanced warfare combat tutorial thing, track, path. We need to work on the names.
Yes.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Guy in the back.
Just a point on the docking.
Yeah. Nice.
Docking fees, I believe, are based on the size of the ship. So if you dock in the Cobra Tops, it may be 100 discs to dock. But you come back in the Baller, so you've got a big ship, and then the fee is set huge. So what you need is when you accept the contract, say what the fees are for different types of ship, so you know what you're in for. For a Cobra Tops, it may be 100 discs. For a freighter, it's lots.
It's a pretty important piece of information. Maybe it should be listed like in the show info for stations.
I'm thinking I should have brought a notepad.
Yeah.
No.